Hello, Spanish 2 and 3 students. Today we're going to go over Unit 22. We tried to do our Illuminate session earlier today and it wasn't working, so I had to do a clean recording. If you have any questions, please make sure to email me or give me a call. The objectives for today's session is to go over the calendar week 6, our essential questions week 6, and the vocabulary will be on vacation, and grammar, passive voice. This is the calendar for this week. Okay, just to note, for you to note, the essential question response from last week was due 2/17 on the calendar, since we didn't have school on Friday or Monday. And then our week 6 essential question response will be due this Friday, as we usually have these due. We are starting Unit 22 tomorrow on the calendar, so make sure you go through all the lessons for vocabulary, and then we're going to start our grammar practice on Friday. So you will be finishing up the Unit 22 until next week. Here is our essential question, number 6. What rules do we need to keep in mind when forming the passive voice in Spanish? So you really need to listen to the grammar lesson that I'm going to go over today so you can answer the question for week 6 essential question. What rules do we need to keep in mind when forming the passive voice in Spanish? Here is our vocabulary de vacaciones, on vacation. Tenemos el aeropuerto, el vuelo, el pasaporte, el avión, la maleta, el boleto, el equipaje y el recuerdo, as a souvenir. Y en la playa, este es el vocabulario que podemos usar: el traje de baño, el océano, la isla, la ola, la arena, la piscina, la puesta del sol, el bloqueador, nadar, bucear, esos son verbos, hacer surf, también tenemos el lago, la toalla, la sombrilla y la concha. And I think I have my verbs here as well. Verbos útiles: sacar fotos, viajar, ir de vacaciones, salir, disfrutar, estar de viaje, encontrar. Okay, so here are some questions that go along with the vocabulary. So while you're listening, you try it on your own, and then I'll give you the correct response. Tengo que ir al aeropuerto para recoger a mi hermano. A, airport. B, plane. C, flight. Okay. La respuesta correcta es airport, lo mismo que aeropuerto. Okay, número 2. La isla de Hawái es muy hermosa. La isla. A, the pool. B, the lake. C, the island. Y la isla es lo mismo que the island. C. 3. Encontré muchas conchas en la playa. Conchas. A, shells. B, towels. C, umbrellas. ¿Qué significa la palabra conchas? shells. Número 4. Necesito una sombrilla para no quemarme. Sombrilla. A, towel. C, bathing suit. C, umbrella. Y lo correcto es umbrella. ¿Qué son? ¿Qué es esta imagen? ¿Y qué es esta imagen? Tenemos las maletas y el pasaporte. Writing activity. ¿Qué te gusta hacer cuando vas a la playa? Use this week's vocabulary to answer the question in Spanish. You can start with yo me gusta. Okay, so on your own practice, what do you like to do when you go to the beach? Yo me gusta, I like, and then use the vocabulary to practice. Okay, here is the passive voice. Changes the focus of a sentence from the doer of the action to the receiver of the action. So, if you understand the difference between active and passive voice in English, it refers to the same thing in Spanish. So, how do we form the passive voice in Spanish? So, let's take a look at some examples. We have active voice in English. She read the story. Okay, so here we have the subject is doing the action. That's our main focus. Okay, so the doer is the main focus. He set the table. They painted the house. So if we were to use passive voice, how would the sentence change? It would change this way. She read the story, or if you're focusing on the receiver of the action, the story was read by her. The table was set by him. The house was painted by them. So again, she read the story, can switch to the story was read by her, and that will be our passive voice. He set the table, to the table was set by him. They painted the house was painted by them. Forming the passive voice. In Spanish, the passive voice is formed by combining the verb ser with the past participle. So you need to know how to conjugate the verb ser. And I'll show you a slide of how to do so if you forgot. And then you need to combine that with past participle. And we went over this rule last week. The past participle is formed by adding the ado to the verb stem of an AR verb and ido for ER, IR verbs. Okay, so for example, the verb hablar, okay, we're taking out the AR to leave us with the verb stem, and then we would have hablado, okay? And you will also get a list of the irregular past participles that don't follow that rule that I just went over. Okay, so you need to be aware of these ones that break that rule. So abrir would not be abrido, it would be abierto. Cubrir, same thing. Cubrido, it would be cubierto. Okay, so these are the ones that do not follow the rules, so you need to know them. Abrir, abierto, cubrir, cubierto, decir, dicho, escribir, escrito, freír, frito. And then see how the meaning changes as well. Okay, hacer to hecho, morir to muerto, poner, apuesto, resolver, resuelto, romper, roto, ver, visto, volver, vuelto. And here is how to conjugate the verb steps. So if you're using present tense or the past preterite tense, you have your conjugation here. Yo soy, tú eres, él, ella, usted es, nosotros, nosotras somos, vosotros, vosotras sois, ellos, ellas, ustedes son, in the present tense. That's our verb to be. Or if you're referring to the past or the preterite tense, yo fui, tú fuiste, él, ella, usted fue, nosotros, nosotras fuimos, vosotros, vosotras fuisteis, ellos, ellas, ustedes fueron. So, here's the chart that will show you how to combine said and past participle. Okay, so here is, we're going to start off with our passive subject. Then you're going to use the form of said. It can be actually in either the present or the past tense. And then your past participle, remember it's either ido or ado, or you have to look at the irregular verb chart to find its past participle. And then por and the agent who's doing this. So el libro es leído por ella, o el libro fue leído por ella. Okay, see how it changes when you have more than one. So it has to agree, the said and the past participle must agree in gender and number. So los libros, more than one, we're going to either use son, which is the equivalent to are, or fueron, were. Los libros son leídos por ella. O los libros fueron leídos por ella. And leídos needs to match as well. Okay? Leídos more than one. So these are all matching together. So at home, I want you to practice. Okay? So you're going to change the following sentences to passive voice in English first. She broke the computer. He wrote the book. My mom cooks the pizzas in the oven. I bought the car. So how would we change these that are in the active voice to passive voice? We need to know how to do this in English so that we can transfer that knowledge into Spanish as well. So the first one, we can say the computer was broken by her. The second one, the book was written by him. The pizzas are cooked in the oven by my mom. And the fourth one, the car was bought by me. So see how the object is the first thing here that we see, usually a thing. And then here we have it as the receiver of the action, not the doer. Okay, so now if we're using these sentences and we want to translate these into the passive voice, how would we go about doing so? Let's take a look. I would use the same chart, so we have passive subject, then said, then your past participle, and then por and agent. And then these ones, in the examples that I provided, were in parentheses because you can leave it out of the sentence and it would still make sense. Okay? So for the first one, it would look like this. La computadora fue rota. Okay? So if you actually look up the verb, it's in the irregular past participle list that I provided. You would see it says roto. But since we're dealing with a feminine singular noun here, or subject, we're going to have to change it to rota. And then por ella. La computadora fue rota por ella. So I'm going back to this one. The computer was broken by her. Okay, so the next one. The book was written by him. El libro fue escrito por él. Okay? Escrito comes from escribir, and it's also an irregular verb, so it has it doesn't follow the ido or ado ending for past participles. Escrito. Okay, see how this one changes. Las pizzas son. It's more than one. Okay, son. So we're conjugating our verb ser here. Cocidas. Okay, so son is the same thing as were. Las pizzas son cocidas por mi mamá en el horno. O por mi mamá. The next one. El carro fue comprado por mí. Okay, so see how this one does follow the pattern. You have the verb comprar, AR, so you're just adding the ado. And since it's a singular masculine, we're just going to keep it as an ado. So this one was a singular, plural feminine, more than one. So we had to switch it from our AR to our idas. Okay, so idas instead, more than one, adding the S at the end. Okay, any questions, please make sure to contact me. Make sure you answer that essential question. Okay, number 6 on 220 in Middlebury for Friday. And also don't forget to answer 5, which was due yesterday at 2:17, since we had no school on Monday and Friday. So this is, again, a preview of your vocabulary and grammar that you're going to see in Middlebury for Unit 22. Thank you for listening.